Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sangham namassami. Paying homage to the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, as we are so lucky to have the possibility of this teaching in our world today. And it's quite a blessing to, be in this life together with this kind of support that the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha provides. So I'm so glad to be here with you. I know that there's this Mission Majjhima program going on. How many people are got some hands are right on up. If you're not yet familiar with it, it's pretty awesome. The bhikkhus put together a little 10-minute clip about a sutta, and then there's this wonderful set of resources. I'm not sure who's pulling it all together on the YouTube link that you can go down and read and listen to lots of talks and things. So the one that's coming up for tomorrow, I'll be doing the Zoom part of it. Tomorrow is called The Simile of the Saw, which sounds pretty hardcore, right? And if those of you who have done some of the study this week, you'll know why I might be so enthusiastic about this sutta that I actually thought we'd cover some of it today. I wasn't sure what to talk about today because we've actually started our winter retreat at Passaddhi Vihara. I don't go into the seclusion for another week, so I stuck in a few extra little outings here and one more in Olympia. Last week, we'll still do the online programs, but just one of us, whoever's not in seclusion. And I did this Unbounded Qualities as a kind of a guided meditation. And this is the power. This is why I called that meditation a nutriment, a nourishing. I went into that Thursday night to read, we did the chant, and then I was going to go through kind of a contemplation of the unbounded qualities of loving kindness through equanimity. And I wasn't feeling very well when I started that Zoom. So I said, I'm not sure how long we're going to go. And I, equivocated that, this might be a short one. We got into the chant, I did the meditation. I felt so good. At the end of 40 minutes, I was just like the loving kindness, the warmth, I felt like there was that healing energy of just being in the space of the Dhamma. Well, if you want to go look at the recording, the problem is I didn't have the audio on the entire time. So they might have even taken it down. I'll redo it. But I looked at it. At the very end, I kind of noticed, hey, wait, my mute button is on. And with equanimity, it was more like, oh, well, look at that. I've just been talking for 50 minutes about loving kindness. And I said, but I hope with the sound off, the metta still came through. And I looked at the video, and I could kind of see, oh, wow, in my own affect on my grainy camera, that there is a real potent thing to this practice. And that is what we're shining out into the world. And that is a power greater than what the sutta will talk about today. I also wasn't sure if I'd talk about the sutta of leave the past behind and the future and be in the present moment. I think it all just wraps together. So, well, if you want to bring in how this applies to the past, the future, or now, we can do that in the question part. So this sutta, the simile of the saw, Gotta excuse the devices today. I had some technical difficulties, and so I'm reading from the screen. This sutta today, Simile of the Saw, has a whole bunch of very vibrant similes and stories of where irritation, anger, great distress, this indignation arises. And the Buddha's saying, you know what? That's kind of like what you do out in the dog-eat-dog world. That is not the power of this practice. So that's kind of the underlying message. So anyone familiar with this sutta where it's like there's a bhikkhu, okay, some hands. It starts with a bhikkhu who's been associating with the bhikkhunis very closely and gets really upset if the bhikkhunis are put down. Now, we like to have advocates. This is a good thing to be an advocate. It's good to support and protect each other. It's when it becomes this attachment where you get indignant and you start to chastise others in ways that are not wholesome. So this sutta is not about being an advocate. It's about don't let your heart harden during your advocacy. Do not act out of anger. Let it be the power of love, because it is so much stronger and it won't damage you in the process. You will end up stronger, the situation has more chance of resolution, and you aren't doing harm in your attempt at repair. So that's what this sutta really gets to. Let's see here. I think I'm going to start from what is it that generally arises when someone's done something to you or someone you care about, or a situation in the world, the systems. I was talking with some doctors and nurses just the other day, and we were going into what does the medical complex look like, and how different is it than the healing purposes that these people went into that occupation. And we also realized it's the same thing going on in the education system. We're talking about children's welfare on the way over. You can just name off system after system where indignation might arise. So contemporary Brené Brown, okay, good researcher on emotion qualities, what they do for us, what they don't do for us, what they do to us, what they do to others. And this is what she says about anger. If you look across the research, you learn that anger is an emotion that we feel when something gets in the way of a desired outcome, or when we believe there's a violation of the way things should be. Does that match with people's general sense of, her work is amazing. Don't agree at 100%. There's a little, Buddhism takes it a little further, but there's a great starting point. So anger arises when there's something that we think needs to be fixed. When we feel anger, we believe that someone or something else is to blame for an unfair or unjust situation, and that something can be done to resolve the problem. Now, I will tell you, we are in samsara. We are not going to fix samsara. This does not mean that stop being an advocate. This does not mean to stop supporting and caring for each other. Please do all of that. But do it from the place of practice where you have wisdom to act with a good and open and kind heart. So I'm curious, the next page in this one, she says, behind this anger, the red dot, if you can see it, let me see if I can hold it in such a way that the camera can pick it up too on the screen. Behind the red dot anger, might be, usually anger is like the wake up, ding, 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 something needs attention. For you, what might be behind it? For me, fear. Fear is a big one. Shout it out, online or in person. Indignation, sadness, yes. Patronizing. Sad. I didn't catch that one. Hurt, yep. The will to dominate, yep. Social position. Pride. Behind the anger, rage. Rage, we can do a whole talk on rage and how the differences between anger and rage and the qualities and what's supportive in those qualities and what is just tearing your heart apart. Rejection. Vulnerability. Bruising. Yeah. Embarrassment. Comparison, oh, both. Embarrassment and comparison, yep. Protection. Any online? I don't know if they can unmute, maybe. Well, I'm just going to make the assumption that you're all human too, and have some of these similar. So yes, you've named all of the ones that I put on my short list, and if you wish to come and look at the picture, you can see this collection. And it's not an inclusive list. What about if we approach these emotive frustrations, a big one? This is one I noticed when I was talking with the medical staff, was underlying it was a frustration that they couldn't really do what they wanted to do to meet their patients and care for people, because the system was wrapping them up in a way that monetized their time, which when you start to monetize your time, that puts a wrapper on your heart, and it's tight. So the sensation is a tightness. So can we allow the medical profession, the teaching profession, or the people who help keep our places clean, the streets, the building construction, is there a way that all of these tasks, grow our food, distribute it, drive it to people's houses, whatever it is there a way that we can do this not wrapped up by the system, but out of unbounded dana, with an act of generosity? So what the Buddha is suggesting in this sutta is to move from this anger impetus to one of unbounded love. If you're acting out of unbounded love, what qualities underlie that? I'll cede that one too. One that came up for me was understanding. An understanding of it's like this, and a compassion for the way it is. This list is often harder to generate, but what qualities do you know or notice when you are acting from an unbounded love? You can think of an animal you've cared for, a child, a parent, a social situation, good party, good conversation. What qualities, when you were acting out of unbounded love, were present underlying that? Relaxed openness. That's a ding, ding, ding for me. Calm. Generosity. Joy, acceptance. Connection. Alignment. And selflessness. Yeah. That quality of we're really understanding the characteristics. Not a self here. This is a movement, an action, the Dhamma flowing. Yeah, I would include also there's a sense of inner safety. I I'm not protecting. We heard the word vulnerable before, and that's a, kind of a tricky place where it can fall into the vulnerability I need to protect because I may not be saved. And the vulnerability of understanding this life is fragile. It's an understanding, an acceptance, and an inner safety that the fragility of this body and my social situation, it's not the end all. So a wisdom, that was the other one I put down. An equipoise or equanimity. And basically all the Brahma Viharas. Can't go wrong. Okay. All right, we're still good on time. So I can get to some of the words in the sutta itself. And I probably won't spend the full amount of time I'm, quote, allocated, because I know there's a richness in the conversation space. So I captured a bunch of the different translations. The sutta goes through 8 different scenarios, 7, 8, 9, depends on how you parse it out. Quite a number of different situations. So it starts with this monastic situation of one monastic is like getting upset because these other monastics are being somehow, taunted or something. Who knows what it was? They don't give us the full backstory. It goes into whether or not the monastic is able to take feedback, which is another one of my favorite suttas. It's about how do we receive feedback, admonishment. And it goes into, looking at our own qualities of what is wholesome and to be nourished and grown. There's this beautiful image of you've got a sal tree forest. So here we could say a Douglas fir forest. And there it's the castor oil plants are starting to get invasive. Here maybe it's that wild morning glory that strangles things. My mom was totally surprised when I was in Minnesota that it was growing morning glory. And we realized it was a completely different climate and different plant. She's like, you did what? Yeah, so what are we growing? And what are we weeding out? And one of the things to be looking at the castor oil plant is the angers, all of those things underlying that. And the sal forest is this unbounded love that we're cultivating. And then it goes into a variety of different similes of how people might speak to you, whether it's gentle or harsh, the different ways, whether it's true or not, and how you react, what reaction emerges. So the basic response, I'm going to read multiple translations here, starting with Sujatu Bhikkhu. My mind will not degenerate. I will blurt out no bad words. I will remain full of sympathy, with a heart of love and no secret hate. So nothing, no cankers left in the heart that are going to grab out and potentially barb, maybe just the tone. Well, that's nice. Yeah, no secret hate. That's how you should train. Piatan. My heart will not be perverted in any way, nor shall I utter any bad speech. But I shall dwell with a heart of loving kindness, moved by goodness, without a hating heart. Nyanamoli Bhikkhu. My mind will be unafflicted, and I shall utter no bad words. I shall abide compassionate for welfare, with a mind of loving kindness and no inner hate. Tanisro Bhikkhu. My mind will be unafflicted, and I will say no evil words. I will remain sympathetic to that person's welfare with a mind of goodwill, and with no inner hate. Going back in history, I.B. Horner. Neither will my mind become perverted, nor will I utter an evil speech, but kindly and compassionate will I dwell, with a mind of friendliness and void of hatred. It is thus that you must train yourself. The Pali is Nacheva me chittang viparinatang bhavisati, nachapapikang vachang nichare sami, hitanukampi cha vihari sami, meta chitto nodo santaroti. So in there, I'm going to unpack the Pali a little bit and then give you my cutting-edge translation for today. So there's the word viparinata, and the word means to alter or change, or pervert, deprave, alter by lust, bent all around. Bent all around. I don't get bent out of shape. My mind will not get bent out of shape, is how I'm translating this. And this is a body-based thing. I work a lot with embodiment practices. I know when my mind's getting distorted, perverted, off base, because there is some sort of, I don't know if you can see the you know it, that I'm not in balance. I'm tightening, I'm squeezing, I'm pulling away, I've bent out of shape. I bent out of the shape of unbounded love. So that's a nice little catch in this. I will not get bent out of shape, no matter how you speak to me. This is a goal. Thank you. Okay, the next Pali word, nichareti, is to speak out, utter, emit, let out, cause to move out. So there's an impulse. Maybe you can, in that definition, hear the kind of impulse. You heard it in the different translations about uttering or blurting out. So I like to translate this one, and no evil speech will I spew. Because don't we do that? It's a reactivity. And I've given talks here before about, can we look at that space? Can we build in our practice the space? Often there is something happens and I react. In order to be responsible, to have the ability to respond, we cultivate something happens, I respond. So there's a space, there's no spewing happening. So this is one way we can deal with all of these situations, from somebody's talking smack about a friend of mine to the end of the sutta where they're literally sawing off your limbs. That's the spectrum the Buddha wants you to apply this to. Okay, time-wise, I better keep going here. The next word here, let me go back to hitanukampi. I'll get the part of speech right here. So the hita part is that it's useful, suitable, beneficial, friendly. A friend, a benefactor, benefit, blessing, good. And the other part is a word you may have come across before, anukampam. This is a friendliness, a compassionateness. It literally means to tremble with. And so it's that aspect of compassion that's really viscerally present. It's also balanced within the Buddha's framework. It's a very balanced understanding, resonating with, yes, I'm human too. I like to translate this bit as with kind care. And if you've ever seen emails from me, I sign it with kind care and strength. And I added the and strength because my first talk here was right after Lokavahara was dissolving, and I was, heading out for a year of travel. So this was my first stop on the way. And I was talking about kind care, kind care, kind care. And a mentor of mine said, you were putting in all of those qualities of the kindness and the caring, but there's a real, he teaches about power and love. This is Paul Linden, an Aikido master. And he says, you need to talk about the power too. That this love is a power, that they are synonyms. And so I now sign it with kind care and strength. Because love is not wimpy. It is powerful. Okay. The next word is viharika. Staying or sojourning, being in such and such a condition. So this is, and the condition that it was talking about, I didn't put the Pali word that it's with, is metta citta. Metta, a warm, friendly heart. Citta, that's our mind heart. So what we are abiding in continuously with, I translate it as, and continued warm heart. And then the last word in this section is dosantaro. It's bearing anger with aversion, literally anger inside. And this is negated, not, at the end of the chant it says without ill will. So this is, I translate as no anger inside. So regardless of what comes at us, my mind will not get bent out of shape. No evil speech will I spew. With kind care and continued warm heart, no anger inside. Okay, I'm at the time actually, so I will read out Bhikkhu Bodhi's fuller one, translation, and then we'll open it up. Our minds will remain unaffected, and we shall utter no evil words. We shall abide compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. We shall abide pervading that person with a mind imbued with loving kindness, and starting with them, we shall abide pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind similar to, and in the similes it goes through, so similar to the earth, the air, things that accept. Abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train.
Handamayang Dhammakataya Sadhu Karang Dadamase. Sadhu, 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 anumodani.
With that, we can open up to questions from all of you.
Thank you, Ayya. I think what was coming to mind for me is that that's a high bar, tough practice, and so we make lots of mistakes. And what I'm noticing is maybe I'm a little bit quicker to repair when I've gone astray and spewed anger at someone. And so I wonder if you could just speak to that part of the practice. It's like, we're making mistakes all along the way, but we're quick to repair, and how that shows up.
Yes, this is, it is a high bar. I mean, really think about it. It's a high bar. If all the way to being severed limb by limb, to allowing no anger to arise, to continue to abide in a heart of loving friendliness, it's a high bar. It's a liberating bar. And it is amazing how much we can sustain and be with and, do what we can to rectify. And part of getting to that, where we just walk into every situation with love, is noticing where we didn't. Because it happens. Happens at the monastery, it happens here, it happens, humans. So when we notice, the first thing to do is, sweetheart. Not, because that is acting with anger. Have the hiriyottapa, the conscious raising. Ooh, that didn't taste right. Notice the quality. Ew. I can even, immediately there's a bitterness that comes up. Notice it. Notice the reaction to having committed that kind of verbal offense or physical or mental offense. Notice it. That's the hiriyottapa. But the response to that is, oh, thank you for alerting me. Which is kind of what this emotion of anger can be until it's adapted over time to being this wholesome hiriyottapa from the teachings. If it's anger, it's anger. It comes up and you go, oh, thank you for alerting me. Oh, sweetheart, of course you feel like this right now. Let's see if we can make this better. So start the repair here in your own heart. Do not beat yourself up. That is committing a second angry offense. Allow the warmth of the heart to come back and then say, or act or do to make the actual reparation. The real quality of a solid community is when you have ruptures, you have repairs. Ruptures happen. We're all coming from different social locations, different histories. Our understanding of the exact same word and sentence could be very different than the person you're sitting next to. So the word spoken may not have even intended to land harshly, or internally there may have been a little barb. But whatever the case is, look at the impact and make the repair. But to do it, you do it from the heart of loving kindness. And then you go, good job. And you repeat, and you repeat, and you repeat. And it becomes much, much easier. In monastic life, we have at least bi-weekly, although most of the places that I've lived, it's like when it occurs, you make the repair. But at least on the moon days, which is coming up on Monday here, I think, we get together and confess anything that's occurred and make sure that we've cleared it. So that there's a continual practice of clearing all the small things, so that anything bigger spews, we already have an environment of reparation. So I highly recommend building that into your repertoire, an environment of reparation. Thank you. There's a hand over here.
Thank you, Ayya. One of the phrases from the chant that we did at the beginning, and to all as to myself, has become so meaningful for me. I don't know why I didn't like see it the first 100 times or something. And for me, that continues to be a powerful motivator, and I was wondering if it's that connection that somebody mentioned, but it's a really deep connection. I would like it if you could speak to that. Thank you.
You got it within 100. That's great. Yeah, to all as to myself. So number one, that means don't leave yourself out. You are a part of this unbounded love. You are not the source giving it out to everyone else. It also bathes you and your practice. And also, if your well is not full, how do you provide a drink to anyone else? So I love the well analogy. when I talked about the meditation is our nourishment, it's filling our well. It's giving us the capacity to be able to offer out this drink of Dhamma. One who drinks of Dhamma happily abides with mind clear, pure, and bright. In the Dhamma made known by the noble ones, always the wise will delight. Now, we won't have the capacity for delighting if the well isn't ready to be able to share out. So to all as to myself, I treat myself, I left myself out for a long time. And I was with a meditation teacher who said, you need to be doing metta. I'm like, I am. For yourself. My metta became far more powerful and pure and rightly aligned. Someone used the word alignment earlier. Because I started to take the parts of myself that were disturbed in so many different ways in saying, oh yes, sweetheart, you too. You get my love too. And I became much more integrated psychologically by not throwing out all of the humanity that's right here. And when I can accept and care for this conglomerate called Ayya Niyyānika now, it's so much easier and safe to love all of you. So does that get at what you're talking about? Yeah. Over there. And there might be something online too.
Hi, I'm Ryan. It's lovely to see you. We met last month in the Theravada group. My question is, I can connect with unbound love sometimes, but what can we do when in our communications with others who are experiencing unskillful mind states?
So my understanding is that you're in communication with someone who is disturbed in their communication or their internal framework, or yeah. So, in other words, they're human. Not an arahant, human, living a life and doing the best they can, but under-resourced for communications, as we all are at times. So I've spent years working on communication skills in regard, and the bottom line is, someone said it, open, calm, clear, bright, so that the space which I am speaking from is stable. So when I'm working with somebody who is not in that same clear space that I'm attempting to continue to abide in, is to try to invite them into that state. And that can be done just initially by your presence. When there's a non-reactive presence, often the person will become less constricted. Now, if they're very, very tied up into, in a mental affliction that tape is going and going and going and going, you might have to sit there for quite some time, and it may be many sessions before it will feel safe enough to soften just enough to even get to this next step. So it depends on the severity of the contraction in the person. But then you might invite them into, would you be willing to breathe with me? This exercise of breathing in all directions, warming the heart, settling. To say, I've got this tool that I learned and it's been super helpful for me before I start these conversations. Would you be willing to do this with me? And sometimes they're going to go, no, that's too woo-woo. Forget that. And so in those cases, you just continue to be the presence and maybe mention, oh, I've really found this is helpful. The main thing is don't get unbalanced yourself. And over time, they will start to, like my family has commented on the shift, the changes. Someone who was the one who drove me to the train to come up to Seattle right after the dissolution down in California and the monastery going off in different directions. Half of us landed up here in Washington State, not a bad thing. At that point, I was pretty scared. And so people then talking to her 2 years, a year, 2 years later, she's like, each time I see this stability, is growing. So that's the best gift you give. And then over time, you can invite them into nonviolent communication skills, radical acceptance skills, these kind of things. Number one, just be the presence. Does that address? Yeah. All right.
Is there anyone online?
Okay. Online, we had someone?
Yes, hi, Venerable. Thank you so much for your talk. I was really inspired by the part of the metta practice where it says, I will pervade this person with an awareness imbued with goodwill, and beginning there, I will pervade the all-encompassing world.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. That was a point we're aligned on this one. Isn't that beautiful? Because this is a person you're in conflict with, right? You brought this up because they just somehow gave you some sort of feedback or they're sawing off your limbs, something. They've done something that's provoking. And you've brought up this practice to really offer love. How powerful is that? It will naturally want to then encompass everything in the space around. But what if we make that a practice? I've done this where I've had that person, and I'm not saying it was their fault at all, that I felt provoked by. And I brought them to be the center of my metta practice. And I had to keep going back to the parts of me that were so hurt, so frustrated, so this, so that. So loving kindness for this internal upset, loving kindness for this person who is a conditioned being. Their conditioning has had them to speak in this way, whether what they were telling me was from their best good heart or was intentionally cruel. Matters not. They are a conditioned being. And they're doing the best they can with that conditioning. Can I love them? Doesn't mean I don't put up safety and protection and whatever if this person is doing actual harm. But it does mean I do it with heart of love. And from there, if I can do it in that situation, everything else becomes easy. But I don't forget and just wait for the next difficult moment. I'm going to practice metta with this one. I'm going to practice metta. It's like it becomes like I get on the bus and everyone on the bus gets loving kindness. Now, when I walk into whatever, the park or whatever, every dog, every squirrel, every human. I have to remember sometimes to look up from the dog and to see that there's a human attached to them. So I'm trying to do that practice. Dog, oh yeah, human too. So yes, please, this is really good. Once I've practiced it here, it is powerful and strong. Let me share it. And it's a light that shines. It's like a light bulb. The light bulb doesn't say, I'm going to push in this direction. It just radiates. So thank you for bringing that up, Joseph. How are we?
We have, I think, time for one more question. Or not? Oh. Miles, right. Oh, right. Go ahead. Thanks.
All right. I'll get yours afterwards. You can come up afterwards.
I just wanted to ask where forgiveness fits. Because, yeah, I just would like to hear more about that.
We could talk a lot about that. Forgiveness is I think the wording itself is something that's kind of been added, modernized in our practice. The goal is to never feel you're open, you're accepting, you're understanding. So forgiveness usually means I've been hurt and I'm releasing you of, this response, this heaviness. I'm reconnecting, I'm repairing is usually what a forgiveness is. Very beautiful practice, I'm all for it. And the goal is to be able to be with so much that forgiveness never really, like there was somebody that we'd had a altercation and I saw them a while later and I said, please forgive me for that thing that happened, the conversation that wasn't as aligned as I would have liked it to have been. My skills were not what I wished they would have been. And she said, there's nothing to forgive. I am completely okay with you. And if we can be completely okay with each other, now this does not mean behaviors don't get corrected and, conversations to be had for our mutual well-being. But the concept of forgiveness becomes a natural movement of the heart. In the meantime, to formally forgive, to go to a person and say, my heart is open to you, is an amazing, vulnerable, beautiful thing. Please have the framework around you when you do that you are supported and stable, and you know the safety and love of the practice, so that whatever their response is will not shake or shatter you. That it's a completely opening, accepting, embracing move that's sane, safe, wise, and loving. Does that start to address it?